Support for Donnybrook is provided in part by Design Air Heating and Cooling.
Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Hey, ask Alvin where he's going to be at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. He's going to be buying tickets to Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass at the Two Hill Auditorium, University of Missouri, St. Louis. I cannot wait. So it's whipped cream and other delights tonight on Donnybrook. Joining us, Wendy Wiese, media veteran, radio superstar. One of our founders of this fantastic show, Bill McClellan, who just got a haircut. Can you notice
Looks
that?
nice.
Hey, he looks very nice. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Joe Holleman. And in my chair tonight is Sarah Fenske from St. Louis Magazine. Well, yesterday afternoon, we had about 100 protesters march up Olive in protest of ICE and immigration deportation. You would have thought it was D-Day up and down the lane there because they had every access blocked to Olive Boulevard. So Governor Kehoe today being proactive and supports everybody's right to free and legal demonstration, but he has activated the National Guard for this weekend when protests are planned throughout the state of Missouri. And meanwhile, our Senator Hawley, he wants to know information on the people that assembled the first protest in Los Angeles, which have seen some destruction and violence going on. So are we kind of maybe trying to intimidate those that might get out and protest on Saturday, or is this a good precaution? We'll discuss it right here, and I'll start with you, Joe.
I think that both sides are correct. It depends on how you wish to look at it. People who are opposed to the government's policy say, well, this is just pure intimidation. Other people who are on the other side of that will say, well, it's better to be prepared. If you need to activate the National Guard, if you have them there, doesn't mean you have to send them in or ask them to do anything, but that cuts out a step. So I think where we're going to end up is how the protests end up going. Do they stay peaceful, constitutional protest, or does it involve, as we saw in LA, destruction of property, violence toward law enforcement officers? Then it takes on a whole different face. So I think right now is maybe next week or 2 weeks from now, we can say, was this too early to activate the National Guard, or was it a really smart move? I don't think we can answer right now.
What time are the protests scheduled?
Now, I have heard different times. I think one is for like early morning, but that's the one that would be in St. Louis. Across the state, I don't know. And I'm not saying that Governor Kehoe doesn't care for protests in St. Louis, but I think he's talking about other places maybe other than here.
All the ones I've heard were daytime hours.
Which is a good sign. I mean, these things tend to get out of hand in the hours of darkness.
Right. Well, and as I've seen it every protest I've had to cover, there's almost two groups.
Yes.
There's the day group of
shift and the
people,
night shift.
right, and then the night
Exactly
shift comes on, and honestly, sometimes you could tell that some folks on the night shift were just looking to break things.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see is always such a wishy-washy statement, but I think that's actually where we are right now.
To me, everything about these protests seem like they're going to be fairly calm in Missouri, and that I think we have some Missouri politicians who are kind of excited about getting in on this issue that is very popular with their base right now. Like, let's respond with force to what's happening in California. What's happening in Missouri doesn't seem to be what's happening in California. So to me, this feels a little premature, especially since after the tornado that absolutely ravaged the city, it took quite some time to get some National Guard members out there and to get not that many of them. So to me, I don't love that Mike Kehoe is saying, I'm going to get in here this fast. I've got to just be proactive. It's like, where was the proactivity on May 17th?
Well, and I'm kind of hoping, because we are Missouri, as you just said, that it's going to be a Pope John Paul II visit where we were all like in our bunkers because we thought that the population of the world was going to descend on the St. Louis area, and there were, it was like, oh my God, don't come, it's Armageddon. There's no place to park. You'll have to walk in from Indiana, that kind of stuff. So I really am hoping that they're erring on the side of caution because that's what people my age do.
Well, I will say that, and I'm old enough to remember, although I was 10 at the time, but people hear National Guard and then they start thinking Kent State, and there's just like, if you want some, you're going to get some. Mm-hmm. And that's why I kind of I would have just maybe taken a wait and see attitude before I announce it, because you're kind of daring people to act bad. And that doesn't mean you should act bad, but it's kind of like, okay, the first step was you activating the National Guard on Thursday afternoon for a protest that might have 200 people. That I don't know.
Yeah, this just it's I miss the days, the good old days when protests were spontaneous. You know what I'm saying? And organic, and you didn't know what was going to happen. And now it's like political theater. I hate to say that, but that's exactly.
I wonder if maybe it was always political theater, and now with social media, it's just so much easier to see the organization going on as opposed to just having to get like the whispered password. Yep. I think there have been quite a few protests in St. Louis throughout this Trump presidency, and everything that I have seen, these have been incredibly peaceful. These have honestly been a lot of boomers who have been out there.
Oh, they're the baddest.
Yeah, some of the biggest ones have actually been in St. Louis County, not in St. Louis City. And so it's kind of been interesting to watch this kind of change in where this energy is.
Yeah.
No, I expect my wife will be out there.
She'll be in the front line.
And that's why I love your wife.
I'm gonna check with my 89-year-old mom and say, Mom, let's stand down on this.
Do you need bail money?
If you need bail money, right, I'll be there. Right. Okay.
When the radical priest comes together,
we're all on the cover of
Jerry
Newsweek.
Kleba. He'll come back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Could you see me like free Reid? Right? All right. Well, it's been rumored out there that Adam Wainwright might be considering a run for Congress. Now, whether he runs as a Republican, whether he runs as a Democrat is unknown. But if he were to be running as a Republican or he had been approached, I got to think that might be some concern that Ann Wagner cannot hold on to her seat when we have our midterm elections in 2026. Your thoughts on that, Wendy?
I think that he is one of the figures in the region. He is so universally loved. And I started hearing this drumbeat about 2 months ago, I'll say 2 months ago, that Republicans were getting calls about Adam Wainwright and the possibility of a run for Congress, for Ann Wagner's seat. It was very deft the way Ann Wagner shot there was like that shot across the bow, but it was still very ladylike when she mentioned that, I haven't seen Adam since he and his family moved to Georgia, however many years ago. I just thought, wow. But I believe that he is a Republican. And I believe that he is watching everything unfold recently. And I'm sure it's a very heady thing to have somebody call and say, hey, we think you'd be a great, candidate for office. Will you think about it? And I'm sure he had a couple of minutes of, well, yeah, I'd be great. And then he sees everything that's happening at this particular moment. And he thought, hard pass. Maybe I'll let this country music and the broadcasting thing, let that take root. And then maybe down the road, if you still want me, but that's what I think is going on.
I don't know. I've never met Adam Wainwright, but everybody I know who has says he's just such a terrific guy and wholesome. And I would hate to see Adam Wainwright get into politics. I mean, it's just what's to be gained? And I don't think anybody's going to beat Ann Wagner. She's in a gerrymandered district. She's smart. She's got a ton of money, and her only danger is from the right. And she is heaving close to Trump, so that there'll be no challenge. I'd hate to see Adam Wainwright get into it.
When I first read it, I just thought it was somebody yanking Ann Wagner's chain. Honestly, and I almost hated seeing Adam Wainwright kind of get involved with that. Why someone who has the respect of most join a field where you have the respect of few. But why you would become a politician after being a beloved sports person, and then you're trying to get into country music. And I think it was when you read the report, they didn't say if he was going to be a Democrat, is he going to be a Republican. I really think this was, we're looking at you, Ann Wagner, and that's really all it had to do. And I didn't take it all that serious.
You guys are kind of killing me. Like, if we are going to say this is this great guy and like he's wonderful, like that's exactly who we should get to run for Congress.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, sorry to steal your words.
We have to transcend what's going on right now somehow.
Right.
And I guarantee you, if Adam Wainwright ran for Congress against Ann Wagner as a Democrat, my money is on Adam Wainwright. Now, I don't want him to change whatever his particular beliefs are just to hold this office, although people do that all the time. But I think I honestly do think that he could beat Ann Wagner if he ran as a Democrat.
Well, if your money is on him, I'm
we can do something here. I think Bill and I will cover you.
Wait, I have proverbial money.
I want to say, though, I did find it a little rich that she's saying, I haven't seen him since he's moved to Georgia. I have now been living in St. Louis for more than 10 years, and I am out and about all the time, and I'm also a journalist. I have never managed to meet Ann Wagner even once, and that is not for lack of trying. I have repeatedly asked her for interviews. She's never once spoken to me, so it's like, come on. It's not like she's so present.
That was the cornerstone of our colleague and dear friend Ray Hartman's campaign.
Right.
You know, that she's never here. So.
And obviously the voters didn't go for that, so maybe they wouldn't go for Wainwright, but I think there is an argument to be made.
Adam Wainwright, as a Democrat, could win a sizable enough percentage of votes in Franklin County in that part of the district that I think it would make a difference. And then two, I think if you look at where he's coming from, all right, I think that he brings enough. Let's just vote for the guy because he's Adam Wainwright, and that's Republican and Democrat. And then I think that would, that would possibly help him out. I know this. He would not be a long shot if he ran. And also keep in mind,
that's good to know for setting the odds.
There you go.
Cover that.
Oh, by the way, and keep in mind,
you don't think he's a long shot, like an even up, 1-to-1? Okay.
All right, there you go. Now, also, you don't have to live in the congressional district until you win the race.
Right.
Then you have to move. So he can move
stay
back
in
to
Georgia.
Right? Stay in Georgia and run. All right. Talk about staying someplace. That's the Rams' money. It seems to be staying in everybody's pockets and not going out to anything in particular. However, there is now a request. Well, actually, some is going to, of the Rams' money that went to, I guess, the Convention and Visitors Commission is going to go to the Dome to help fix it up. And then St. Louis County wants some of the money to go to the animal shelter, the troubled animal shelter. Bill, your thoughts on that?
Well, first on the Dome, it's like when people talk about the best 2 days of a boat owner's life, the day he buys it and the day he sells it. I feel like the Dome has been a boat. It's like we bought ourselves a 35-foot yacht, and it was supposed to be originally big enough to compete with the big guys, but really it's just in the Lake of the Ozarks, and it can't go on the ocean, and we use it 2-3 times a year, and this money it's always in the marina being fixed up, and now we're going to give it another $50 million. And $175,000 of that was for bird detractors or something, because at the two entrances, birds tend to perch and do what birds do. So we're going to spend $175,000 on that. And the people in charge of all this said, well, now this $50 million isn't like forever. We'll need another $150 in the next 10 years,
exactly.
Which means like next year.
Right.
I mean, this is a boat, and I think we should get rid of it. I remember the way we imploded the old Checker Dome.
Yeah.
I think it would be really cool to implode the dome.
The implosions are cool.
Yeah,
you can't get by that.
Right.
Implosions
the last
are cool.
vestige of Stan Kroenke just hit that. And I would just one correction. It's what birds do do. So you should be a writer. You really should, Bill. But like when
In
I
my
was
next life, I will.
10,000 out of work comics.
when I was reading the story, I wish you could have seen my eyes when I saw the part about the escalators are unsafe and that they transport people up and down, and I thought, wait a minute, what? So the dome needs a great deal of work, and I still think the point that you guys were making about Kendrick Lamar or Beyonce or those, we do need that kind of venue. And I know that it's awful to keep throwing money into a yacht, but the thought of building another anything right now, I don't have the will for it. Do you?
No, absolutely. No. I mean, first of all, and I think a couple of weeks ago where I said was, the reason for that dome left with the Rams. Yeah. And no one seems to want to admit that. They go, well, it's for this. No, it wasn't. It was for the football team. Stop. Just right there, and now there's no football team. So to do it for 2 concerts, but to keep torturing the boat thing, I don't have a problem if they want to spend their money on fixing their boat. It's when you start asking me to help pay for your boat that I don't go on, okay? And that's kind of where we're at here. Nobody's inviting me for a ride, but for 2 concerts a year, and they want that $150 million was the first number, because, well, we'll spend 50, and we'd like the city and the county to each throw in $50 million for 2 shows.
Well, okay.
And I'm not saying Kendrick Lamar isn't great.
We're not just talking about 2 shows. I mean, they see this as an essential part of the whole convention center thing. And I will admit, it goes a little bit over my head trying to understand how. But apparently, in order to have our convention center do what our convention center does, we also need to have some sort of similarly situated dome type thing.
Well,
and also, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, the Battlehawks, they are drawing in.
Yep, they are.
12,000 season ticket holders.
Will the Battlehawks league?
No.
We don't know.
Well, here's the thing. For the second year in a row, the Battlehawks lost this game. Then they would have got to be in the championship game and host. The death knell, maybe for the Dome and definitely for the league, is like if 8 people show up for that championship game on Saturday night, then it's a real problem. So I don't know, other than, real quick, $3 million for the animal shelter out of the county Rams money?
I find this so amusing. I feel like everyone I know in the city likes to make fun of the Board of Aldermen, and city politics are so dysfunctional, and we don't know how to govern ourselves because we're a bunch of babies. And then you look at the fiscal prudence the city has showed with carefully letting its Rams dollars accrue interest, and the county's like, I think I'll spend it on a study here. Oh, I'll pay $500,000 for a special election. Hey, let's throw some at the operations for the animal shelter. Like, what are y'all doing?
Right. How about dry cleaning for everybody? Yeah, let's do that with the Rams.
When you're using that big chunk of, was the word transformative?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Wasn't that the big word? This is a transformative amount of money.
Right.
And it's like, let's fix some potholes and everything. That's why it should have all been, when I kept saying, spend it all on fixing the water system in the city. Get that big item that you normally
out of the way.
know you can't pay for. You should have figured out a way to pay to fix your potholes. You should have figured out a way to run your animal shelter. And you haven't. So now you're going to keep drawing down on this till pretty soon they go, okay, we've got a plans for Rams money. How much is left? $3,000, you know what I mean? It's because we spent
You want something flashy out of the. It's like if you win the lottery, Joe. You don't want to spend that money on a new sewer line out to the alley.
You want to buy a boat.
You want
you want to buy a yacht.
A yacht or a deck, something that you can say, here's what I have.
But I don't vote for people like me to take over running the government.
Right.
I mean, I know I would do something like that. But you hope cooler heads prevail. Apparently they're not.
The Rams money has turned into the little dog in The Grinch Stole Christmas. He's got all the stuff that he's robbed from Whoville, and it's like this little tiny dog. It's just got disaster written all over it. It's like you do wonder, what's next? What are they going to say next?
Although I do want to say, in fairness to St. Louis County government, that I was just mocking, all of the county council members that we have talked to, who mostly do not like Sam Page, are saying, oh yeah, we are not in favor of this. So he's going to have to really win some votes for this one to go through.
Absolutely. And $3 million? That's a Reid McClellan for $300,000.
Right? $340,000 for a study on possible development in Spanish Lake.
Yeah.
I was thinking Reid McClellan.
That's it.
Yep.
Do that study. We want that part of that $3 million. Okay, on a more somber note, St. Louis Public Schools has announced that 8 schools, because they were damaged during the tornado, will not be reopening at the beginning of the year. This is not a declaration that they will never reopen, but one of the schools on that list is Sumner High School. And Sarah, it's kind of like, is the writing on the wall that there's going to be a reduction in schools and possibly the historic Sumner High School.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to have a reduction in schools. They have kicked that can down the road far too many times. Kelvin Adams, our very respected former superintendent, was like, we cannot keep paying for all these buildings and all the staffing that is associated with having all these separate campuses. So I get it, but I also feel like this might be kind of a stealth way to do it, and I don't like that. And so I think if they're using this to just ease us into the idea of these schools being closed when it doesn't actually make sense for these schools to be closed, one does just kind of worry about the St. Louis Board of Education running that district. They haven't always been on the up and up, and so I just hope that they're going to be transparent here about what their plans are.
They got new members.
They
People
do.
want to change,
Absolutely.
and they got changed.
But they've got
But
the
they still have the same
superintendent hired by the at the top.
You all said it. I didn't.
Yeah. So you haven't changed that much, and I think that was part of our normal news cycle before KDHX and the puppies. So I mean that is an ongoing problem, and a lot has to be resolved.
Well, and I understand your concern about being a stealth way, and I don't disagree. I do think sometimes, though, that circumstances beyond your control allow you to do something that should have been done a long time ago and remove the protests that would inevitably go through. Because every grade school, elementary school, and every high school, it's going to get shut down. And I'm especially sad to hear that Sumner may be one of them. I mean, what a historical school. First high school for blacks west of the Mississippi. I would leave out too many famous graduates that were Sumner Bulldogs at one time. It was sad to see it go, but it's one of those things that any school board you look at, we try to close these schools. We're going to have every graduate, every parent on us. So if they do get damaged and it does allow you a way to do it, even if it is stealth, it's probably for all the wrong reasons doing the right thing. I mean, when I looked at Sumner to look it up, just because of its history, there's 260 kids in a 4-year high school. That's almost nobody. I mean, so how could you justify if you brought someone in from, another country and said, is it feasible to keep these schools open? They'd probably go, well, of course not. So,
and I saw the release.
attachment.
I've shared. I want to make some inquiries with the school district as to how's the population. Are the teachers going to shift over? What is the security plan? I didn't get a response yet, but I'm sure that I'm not the only one probably asking those questions. I think first and foremost, parents are probably asking those questions. Okay, a question came up in regard to the Disaster Assistance Center that is now going to be taking place at Chaifetz Arena it was this week, and it'll be going on for 2 more weeks on select days. But it's at Chaifetz Arena, and it's not really close to the north side where a lot of the damage from the tornado occurred. So people are calling that into question. Bill, you have a solution, I think.
Well, I was thinking like Churchill at Dunkirk, Alvin. Just say all the boats that can sail. I don't know why I've got this nautical thing. But
More boats.
All the boats go there. I think that if the mayor were to ask for volunteers, especially from the county, to maybe sign up through their churches and drive to the north side and give people rides to Chaifetz, that people would do it. I mean, I have a lot of people say to me like, hey, Bill, I'd like to help out on the tornado thing. Who should I give money to? I go, well, I really don't know. Maybe the Urban League. But I think people would love to be involved.
I agree.
And I think I think it would be a...
I'm just thinking of the liability.
I do think people would love to be involved, and I think there are plenty of ways you can get involved, and the Urban League is a great suggestion. Like, you have your finger on the pulse here. I think the idea of asking tornado victims to just get into a car that's been driven by a random volunteer, that might be fine for like a gentleman like yourself, but there are a lot of young female victims, older females as well, who I don't think they should be getting in cars with random volunteers. I can see us setting up a situation where we're putting people into a predatory situation. The Uber situation that Mayor Spencer has negotiated or set up, these are free Uber rides. And the good thing about Uber, I know some people are saying, okay, they don't necessarily have access to the phones that they're going to need. There's tons of volunteers down there who I think can get them connected to this. And Uber, it's like a tracking device. You know where that car is going. There's some safety that you don't get from your church volunteers.
Sarah, for such a young person, you're so cynical.
I am a little bit.
This is a kumbaya moment for the region.
I think the giant spit take you heard was every liability attorney who works for the city going, for God's sakes, Mayor Spencer, do not encourage people to do that.
To Bill McClellan.
I mean, as far as, I think it's, I don't think anybody, I mean, I know people want to do something, and I think that's great. I've gotten emails from people who say, where should I send my money? And I tell them to make your own choices. I mean, I didn't want to get, but I was heartened at the number of people that I got an email from that said, where would you suggest I send it?
I've gotten a lot too.
Yeah, I think that's great, but I just don't think we should be sending people to neighborhoods they don't know, then asking those people to get into cars with people they don't know.
And people would get to know each other.
I still stand by what we were talking about. What we were talking about last week in terms of having the municipalities. We have 88 of them, and put that number at least to good use, even though it's very frustrating. And maybe there will be some kind of game plan down the road. Adopt a 3-block area.
Well, look, there are currently a lot. I don't think we need to create a new structure. There's some wonderful structures that are there already. I'm writing about one, publishing tomorrow, this Love the Lou. If you look at their website, they have this whole thing where they say, here's where volunteers are needed today. If you have a group and want to come in a week, you can sign up for that. They will put you to work. They said the outpouring from churches in West County has been incredible.
Okay.
So people are stepping up.
All right, let's go to the letters. I was disappointed at the flippant attitude taken by the panel regarding the conditions of county animal control. The core of the problem, years and years of chronic mismanagement and inhumane care of animals, totally disregarded. That from Suzanne Gassner of St. Louis, Missouri. I am generally against public money to private owners, but if the state does allocate some money for the Kansas City Royals and Kansas City Chiefs, there should be a requirement. If the teams accept money, they must change their name to Missouri Chiefs and Missouri Royals, since most people outside of Missouri seem to think these teams are from the state of Kansas anyway. That from Jim Schmitz of St. Louis, Missouri. You can write to us at Donnybrook, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Send us an email to donnybrook@9pbs.org or a tweet to #DonnybrookSTL. Give us a call on the comment line, 314-512-9094. And you can find us where you find your favorite podcast. Will be the best one you listen to. Promise. All right. And speaking of Last Call, which is coming up on YouTube, you mentioned Dunkirk. We're going to be talking about Montgomery when we come back on Last Call. I guess, Sarah, I got to thank you because you're filling in for me. Joe, swell too, man. All right. All right. Hey, join us for Last Call, and thank you. We will see you next week on Donnybrook.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.